Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a brand new episode of Flesh Wound Fist, where we review and discuss your and our favorite action comedy films, or just straight up action. Actually, straight up action most of the time now. This is the world's first and only combination trivia host and professional wrestling announcer of Chilean descent that currently resides in Southern California, Ozzy V. Also with me first in the Northern California Bay Area, world famous juggler Greg Larson. How you doing, Greg?
It is hockey playoff season, so I am great. How about yourself, Ozzy?
I am doing fantastic. Looking forward to talking about this. Also with us, Flesh Wound producer Todd. How you doing, Todd?
I am super. And just for the record, kneel before
Right.
Todd. Just going to throw it out.
Oh, that's good. How long you been saving that one for?
About 3 seconds when it popped in my head.
You ever say that as a kid?
I did not, but I don't get ahead of it, but
Did
no,
you
I
ever
did
have
not.
a friend named Neil who stood next to you?
No, because I was a Gen X kid. It would have been a Neil and Bob joke if it was anything. So
Got it.
Oh, got it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not figured it out already, this episode is very special. We get to review Superman 2, and we get to discuss the theatrical and the Richard Donner cut. A long time discussion. Looking forward to jumping into it. Todd, do you have a trailer available before we get started?
yes, sir. I got a nice vintage 35 millimeter trailer.
Excellent.
Superman 2, the adventure continues. There is something evil in the skies headed for Metropolis. 3 outlaws from the planet Krypton with the same powers as Superman.
I love Zod.
With all this accumulated knowledge, when will these dummies learn to use a doorknob?
Superman, where are you?
Now, the adventure continues at the Eiffel Tower and on the moon. And the romance continues. This is the spectacular challenge.
Superman.
General, would you care to step outside?
To a climactic super battle in the skies over Metropolis. If you've only seen the first part, you haven't seen the best part. Superman 2, the adventure continues this June.
All right.
You know what? Something came to mind while we were watching the trailer, and I didn't even realize it. And now that it popped up, I'm looking forward to it. So we just saw the trailer for Superman 2 with a theatrical cut released on June 19th, 1981, rated PG with a runtime of 127 minutes. And we are going to be getting into the discussion for the Richard Donner cut, which was released on November 2nd, 2006, first made available, with a runtime of 116 minutes. First, a rare time, Todd, is it fair to say that the director's cut is shorter than the theatrical?
Yeah, it happens on occasion, but this is just more than like it's bigger than just a director's cut, like an Aliens one where it was always just a short, and this is a totally different scenario. This is for the horror genre, be like Halloween 6 because it's a totally different version. I'd say it's got that 60% difference.
Gotcha. Now, character created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster, my apologies. Story by Mario Puzo, screenplay by Puzo, David Newman, and Leslie Newman, with the director for the theatrical cut being Richard Lester, obviously for the Donner cut being Richard Donner. Both movies starring, of course, variations. Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman, Margot Kidder, among others. And we can say in the Donner cut it does feature Marlon Brando, one of the bigger differences as well. We can get into that very shortly. Initial thoughts on the theatrical, because that was our first viewing of the film in general. Who would like to go first?
Well, I do have kind of a mixed thing on this one because just to get into this, I'll always offer my wife if she'd like to watch the movies with me, and she knows we jump around decade to decade, when we're doing these. And I go, hey, I've got two movies I got to watch this week. Do you want to watch either of them with me? And she was like, oh, maybe, as long as it's maybe I'll watch one of them with you this week. And I was like, okay, okay. Well, the first one I got to watch is Superman 2. And she was like, oh, it's another 80s like action movie, isn't it? I was like, yeah. She's like, probably not that one. I'll watch the other one with you. I was like, great, Superman 2 it is. So
but like this one's 2006.
So yeah, but anyway, I don't think I'd ever seen the Donner cut, but this was, I always have enjoyed the Superman franchise, but and as a kid, I do have to say I enjoyed this film, but I think rewatching it definitely felt different, and some of the production of it, especially after watching Superman 1 recently, which we all thought was great. This one was a little harder. And what did you say the director was of the theatrical?
Richard Lester.
Yeah, I think his first name should have been Mo, because he raped the Superman series. So, yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Todd?
Yeah, it's funny. I've always liked this one to some extent. It always, every time, even watching it probably makes me more mad as an adult. It was just like, I don't want to watch all this stupid Lois Lane nonsense. And in this one, I'm like, now I watch, I'm like, why would this trade his powers for this chick? Screw all that. Like, it's why is he going all Captain Save a Ho for Lois? No.
And there's the line from Ursa where she says, "This Superman must have low demands."
Yes. It's always, it's like, like he deserved to kneel before Zod for that shit. But like, yeah, like I love Zod in this. I love those characters. They're just like he's so just obsessed with kneel before Zod. It's not my favorite of the series, but I do still enjoy the theatrical cut. I enjoy the Paris scene. But it you can tell it's different from the last one, and we'll highlight that further.
The tone, I mean, we'll highlight that, but initial thoughts for this. I mean, so I saw this a lot when I was a kid, and I haven't revisited it in a very long time. And the thing that really bothered me is when Lois is able to sneak in by, however she sneaks in, which is fine. But the cop is just like, oh, darn. And like,
Well,
she's
that's my
able to
day.
get so far, and they highlight how far she's gotten because and I'm like, so no one like stopped her after this? Like, so it was one of those moments that
It's the French. They don't care. They just
stupid American. Excuse me. That I apologize. I did not mean to offend any French viewers.
We don't have good numbers in France. You're good.
Excellent.
You might piss off Danielle, but she don't watch.
Go on. Was there anything else you had?
Like initially, like I think I liked this more as a kid. Like I still love Zod, and I love the three of them. I think that is, Terrence Stamp is Zod. Anyone else I've seen as it hasn't lived up to that standard. But I mean, I could say the same for Christopher Reeve also, though. So
sure. No, the three, like that was kind of perfect. And
well, I mean, that was when Donner was in charge. So
right, set that up. I mean, it was hard not to like this movie as a kid because it was just a Superman movie, and then revisiting or revisiting it now, I'm kind of remembering that I enjoyed this one more than the first.
I can see there's a lot of origins. You got like an hour of the origin story on the first one. That it's yeah.
Once you've seen it, it's like, all right, move. Let's
and
go.
this is straight into the adventure. Like in this one, you have the hot opening with Eiffel Tower, and you just get into the story, and it's like Superman doing Superman stuff, and then you have that dumb love story in the middle.
Yes, we will get to that very shortly.
You didn't like the space bing bag they were leaving chilling post-coital?
The original love sack.
You're right.
So this, I think we've concluded our initial thoughts, and we can get into these major differences here. Like, let's start by going like with the top. Now, Todd, I mean, it's 2025, and it's 2006. This was released. How do you feel about spoilers about the Donner cut?
I think we're there. We're fine.
Okay.
I think we're fine.
Okay, then let's go over just
You're not fine with it, audience. Warning.
Then
do we have an alert?
Coming.
Like, just in case somebody isn't paying attention.
yeah, I do have an alert in case somebody isn't paying attention.
Oh no.
Okay.
Just in case anybody's like, no, I want to watch the Donner cut and be surprised by the stuff, that was your warning. And then you could revisit us afterward. So the Donner cut does not have a Paris opening. In fact, the openings between the two it's almost like the intro for the theatrical cut was for people that either never saw the film or don't remember any of it. Like, to just like brief moments, you could like piece together what happened and what's going on.
Well, you're talking
And
like through the credit sequence where
Yes,
we kind of get little
yeah.
glimpses. Yeah.
It just, but like to a massive extent to where you're like, all right, on with it, right? Whereas the Donner cut is more, it almost like the scenes that were chosen, whereas it set the tone in two separate directions, with a theatrical cut showing the, I guess, the more the fun scenes and just like telling like the major plot points of the first, whereas the Donner's entrance or intro is more picking up where things left off
But it's not really picking up where it left off.
Yeah,
It's,
but I meant-
it's re-showing you events from the first film. So
but
it's catching you up.
It's catching
in a
you up, but
different
it's
way.
it's doing it in a third of its, but it's almost like saying, remember, this isn't like, a traditional superhero stuff. We're getting, it's like it almost feels like you're going in deeper to the character, because there's a scene with Reeve and Brando where like his hologram, where you don't see in the theatrical, and his,
Well, that's later, though.
yeah, but I mean, throughout like these, I don't know, it's interesting to see that scene was not chosen, and that, well, I mean, just to prove rather that
They just didn't want to pay Brando. That's the reason that Brando isn't in the theatrical cut.
well, no, I'm not, no, I mean, I don't know, I mean, right, it just wasn't there wasn't another scene that allowed Reeve to shine as much as he did in that scene, rather
Right.
than, that everything in the theatrical cut seemed light overall.
Oh no, it's the way the theatrical cut, it's much lighter. The music is a more goofy tone. Whereas this one, it feels Superman. The music is more appropriate to what's going on. It keeps that more Superman 1 feel, where Superman 2 is more light, comical. It's more of that, where this is trying to eliminate as much of that. And like, but like the Brando stuff, it plays totally different. Like, because it's this in the Donner cut, it's a father and son with losing his powers. Plays totally different than a mother and son in the theatrical cut. Like my well, we're not the favorite moments, but my favorite moment does come in with Brando and his son and the whole losing his powers interaction. So I mean, it works better, but I mean, staying in the beginning, like one of the things that I criticize the Donner cut is, I think the effects, I don't like they look like sci-fi digital modern effects versus old school rotoscope, the way they're done in the original one. It kind of pulls me out when we're seeing
wasn't
the
that
bad
because of
flipping mirror.
What they were pulling it from?
Yeah, I thought
they could have done it in a more traditional sense versus doing it the modern way. I mean, but that's my minimal complaint of like, I prefer the look of the original versus just the mirror doesn't look right to me. It looks funny and digital. When it bounces around, it looks bad, to be honest. But
yeah,
I do. That's just a minimal. That's like, I get it. It's a budget thing. They weren't trying to spend $1 billion to fix it.
I got you.
Yeah.
So
but Lois's attempts to call out Superman were much better in the Donner cut,
especially with it starting out, because I'm sure if one of the criticisms was that if Lois Lane's supposed to be this great reporter, how can she not figured this out already? So to address that at the very beginning, drawing it out, very cool. Todd, I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, you didn't. No, and I like that this one there's like the multiple attempts.
Right.
I mean, and I do like, yeah, there's some effect stuff because it was unfinished and like they're pulling from what they have and trying to make it work. And it just,
and I do love the fact that like in the second attempt, there was that moment of like, is she really that crazy? And then you realize she's actually much smarter than we gave her credit for. Like that is a brilliant move for her to have made. So using the we're in spoiler territory, we're okay. Using the blank, and having that moment.
Unless like it accidentally gave Clark a heart attack. He's
right.
still
Or it was on the set of Rust, either one.
Oh,
which go check out a Rush show if you haven't seen it. It wasn't a Crow situation, so it was a little different.
Now if anybody remembers the theatrical cut, specifically when Lois just gets this idea just because he took his glasses off and because they were fogged up and needed to wash them, and all of a sudden gets this idea where it's established at the beginning of the film. So you kind of have this in the back of your head. She's going to try to get him. She's going to try to trick him, especially at the beginning of the movies when you see her sitting over and throwing herself out the building instead of just into the water, right? And Clark needing to rush down and using his subtle powers to save her was much better than chasing her along a river and
getting a tree to fall.
like, cool, man. And going on how the very next scene he just trips over a rug, and it wasn't his mind that wanted to do it, but his heart wanted to do it. Like, that was a little rough, a tough pill to swallow. Whereas in the Donner cut, as Greg mentioned, using a blank to shoot him, and oh man, just that was more like giving the character of Lois Lane some credit as this is how smart she, like, you kind of just, okay, she's done this here. Imagine what she does for, stories, instead of just Perry White saying, if there's a hydrogen bomb that goes off in Paris, she'll get the exclusive saying that's what makes me tick, or whatever, like, kind of like made it more goofy instead of just kind of show how smart she can be. So that was a very cool aspect of it. I also wanted to touch on about the Phantom Zone and the Paris scene being the reason how the Phantom Zone gets busted because of a nuclear blast. And I'm thinking, like, I mean, I guess initially when that happened, that I saw it, I liked the idea of one thing causing the other. But in the Donner cut, we see that the Phantom Zone module, for lack of a better term, is right outside the orbit of Krypton. So once it explodes, the shockwave of that frees them, which is kind of just felt much better than kind of squeeze in, oh, it needed to be a nuclear explosion, and
But
it just
what
happened to be in the same. What's that, Todd?
it was freed by the nuclear explosion, though, wasn't it? Wasn't it from the one from the end of Superman 1 that freed them? Because the way they did it, they showed the rockets from the end of Superman 1, and that's how they got freed in the Donner cut. That was the ripple that broke it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here's where it is.
Which I
So-
actually have a problem with that too, and I'll
Well,
tell you why after.
Here's what I'm
Go on.
getting it's crossed with, is because the explosion of Krypton blasted the Phantom Zone out.
Of the
You know,
where it should have
So
been.
it made more sense because, especially since you saw the Phantom Zone have a similar trajectory to the capsule, it made sense that they were in there instead of just being like floating in the entire universe. It
Right.
just happens to be along this missile at the time that Superman had just.
But it still is, though. It's just a different missile because it gets blown out of the
creating
orbit.
creating another hydrogen bomb instead of just, again, what the Donner cut uses it from the first one. You know what I mean? Because okay, so here's my point. Here's my sorry. It's my point that I'm getting at is the Paris scene is basically redoing the end of the first movie, because you already have a nuclear rocket that went out to space, and that just continues that story instead of creating another bomb that needs to go out into space. Right? Go on. So
And I get that, but that's where my problem lies, though. Like for this cut, I get why he wouldn't use any of the Paris footage because that was all Lester shot stuff. But for me, that makes more sense there. And I'll tell you why. Because why are you going to remind us of the rocket that he had to reverse at the end of the first movie, and then we just do the reverse again? It just shows me fucking oops. Well, Superman just does this every time something screws up. I'm just going to reverse the Earth, because he does it 2 times in a row when you come to the Donner cut.
So your point is, because he reversed it, the rocket should have never been launched?
Well, no, that's another problem. Like the guy at the end, he goes to whoop his ass, the bully from the restaurant. If he reverses the world at the end of 2 in this cut, he just goes and beats up some guy in a bar for no reason. Like, he should remember, like, he's just like, why is this guy like puffing up to me? So it does cause some things. I don't like that I know that was always the original plan, but it makes it kind of makes it the series weird. Like, but technically, you could argue
if he goes
that
backwards, he never sacrifices his powers. If he doesn't sacrifice his powers, the fight never happens.
But does he address him as someone they've seen before or not?
They do in the cut, because there is, and I paid very close attention to this because the interaction Clark has with the shop owner. And like the shop owner says, I just got this place repaired, which you can just blow away like, well, he got in a fight before with someone else.
Right.
But there is some dialogue that it doesn't like sync up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but they also had to use what they had to use. Like the Donner cut isn't perfect, but it's a better film. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Spoiler, getting ahead, but
I guess the one thing, I mean, this might be nitpicky, but just what I was thinking in my head is that, okay, that fight could never happen, but Clark knows that there's this asshole trucker, because when he first pulls up, the waitress says, oh, here comes Mr. Wonderful. Like, it's known. He calls the food garbage, right? So, for all this guy knows, this guy, Clark, could have been coming up, but as far as he knows, this is another nerd that's saying, excuse me, sir, you're shitting my seat. He says, okay, come and make me, move or whatever. And he teaches him some manners, so to speak.
But then that makes Superman do a bully if the guy doesn't even know why he's getting his ass beat.
Yeah, but
a bully
Superman
for a bully.
knows this guy's a jerk. So whether or not
It's
the
confirmed.
other guy understands it,
I get it, but I think if it would have been done differently if they were able to shoot it, because it doesn't line up with the core values of Superman, in my opinion. That's some Zack Snyder nonsense.
That's pretty funny. So have I mean okay, so another thing I was trying to think of the major difference was the animation for the chamber. In fact, the chambers were different between the Donner cut and the
Yeah.
theatrical. With you had a traditional just glass, what looked to be like a glass chamber that people enter in, but this other chamber in the Donner cut looked more like a
Tubes.
Kryptonian chamber.
Yeah.
Like exactly tubes.
The other one was like the phone booth version.
Exactly right. Uh,
And it's funny because the only reason that's different is because I think they had to shoot a certain percentage of it over to be able to say it was directed by Richard Lester. So that's why there is some stuff like that even though it's
I see.
basically the same thing and accomplishing the same thing, it's just reshot. But then there's stuff like the Hackman footage who wouldn't come back after they let Donner go, and they're reusing it. Like you can see that like in the interaction like with the mother versus the father on when they're looking at the crystals and seeing the visions.
Right. Going into the mother and the father now because Brando wouldn't return because they wouldn't pay him the money.
Oh well, no. It wasn't even that. He didn't need to return. All they had to do was pay him for the footage that was already shot. Like, I mean, it was already all shot.
Well, okay. Well, okay. So let me rephrase. Due to Marlon Brando not being in the film, right, Todd, because they just didn't want to pay him the extra money to come back.
No, it wasn't even that. All they had to do was pay him to like they had to pay him for the second movie, even though he already shot it. He had to be paid for it they're like, well, we want to cheap out and not pay him, so we're going to just use the mother. So like the footage was shot. It was just a matter of he had to be paid a certain amount to be in the movie.
Oh, right. I got you.
Yeah.
So there we go. And the mother was used instead.
Because it was cheaper just to bring her in and shoot all new footage.
It to the point you were making earlier, there's a father-son moment that is in the director's cut that is not available in the theatrical, and it adds a little bit more emotion to it. I don't know if I could say this as my favorite moment, but the look of
it's the same one.
Okay, never mind. Then I won't say it.
No, go for it.
Just to go over the order of things, because in the theatrical version, you have Superman. You see him flying over to an island to pick some flowers, right? Well, meanwhile, not knowing that General Zod is anywhere, right? He travels that distance and doesn't know that. But where they get the flowers anyway, I don't know. But anyway, the dinner happens. Then at that point, it's when Clark asks to lose his power so he can be with Lois. And then stuff happens. And here's the thing that was dumb is that he goes into the chamber dressed in his suit. He comes out and his clothes are different. That doesn't make any sense. So then they allude to making love on space.
The space beanbag, the silver
space beanbag, right? And the movie goes on from there. Which I don't know how they got a car up to the Fortress of Solitude, because even in the Donner cut, if Clark Kent doesn't have any powers, how do they leave the Fortress of Solitude and are able to get to the main road? Because obviously we saw it was a trek for Clark to get there. So what happened? I kind of wish it was a 20th Century Fox movie, so that way Family Guy could have parodied it and just been like, well, you couldn't have asked to lose your powers once we were back in Metropolis.
I do have a question about the ending and that whole fortress area. Like, Lex is alive, right?
Yeah, but he just disappears.
You see him take Lois away and then blow up the fortress. Like, is Lex still in there? Like,
in my mind, it was a let me drop him off real quick.
Well, don't they do that in the other cut? Don't they drop him back off? I'm trying to remember. I just watched about it and I already forgot what happens to Lex in the theatrical. But I noticed very clearly, yeah, he just disappears and is never mentioned again in the Donner cut.
Yeah.
But going back into that, the Brando scene and the chamber scene is in the Donner cut. They actually allude to make love first. Then he asks to have his powers removed. Now, this is the reason I want to highlight this is because this cut was released in 2006. Mallrats was released in 1994. And there is a discussion in Mallrats about what would happen if Superman and Lois Lane, like that Superman would need a kryptonite condom, but that would kill him. Lois Lane wouldn't have a strong enough uterus to like, did he pull out? I mean, how did it?
You know, he's got some super pullout game.
But
So-
that is going on the basis that Mallrats lore is accurate for Superman, which I'm okay with. But
What I like is that it would have a reason to revisit the discussion.
That's
Like
fair.
if there was a Mallrats 2,
If,
that would come up.
well,
we
now
don't-
they'd have to. Yeah,
when there's a Mallrats 2,
Or has it been announced or
it's been announced multiple times, but it's still a when, or it's still an if.
there you go. If it ever gets done, I'm hoping that
They only got a few more years before all malls are gone.
Right.
Maybe that's the plot of the episode, Zach.
I mean, it'll be easier to shoot in there. So-
I'm pretty sure it's easy enough to shoot now. Half
Yeah.
the stores are empty at like every mall. You can have a
Right.
movies here and whatever there. They'll fill it up fine.
Maybe that'll be the plot of the movie as you have. Okay, nope, I'm not getting into a Mallrats 2 discussion.
I
in the middle of
actually was
Superman 2.
just in a mall today to pick up my PSVR 2. And
No.
the moment I walk in, I was like, the guy at the register's kind of weirding out. And I was like, everything cool, man? He was like, yeah, just someone just stole a bunch of stuff. I was like, yeah, sounds about right.
So getting back to that chamber scene, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So I mentioned that Clark asks for his powers afterward. It kind of adds a little bit more.
That
in
explains why
particular-
Lois was like, yeah, no, again, change back. We're good.
Or maybe they were like, so Superman, got his groove on, and it was like, oh, this is worth losing my powers.
Yeah, still no. But that makes more sense.
This
Yeah,
it
because
was
he
in-
probably popped his cherry.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, is that this is where you actually saw him as an I didn't mean like
That
I
was very
just
serious
shift-
discussion,
I just-
sir.
I just
Yes.
like shifted from here and I was gonna like go here, so I just wanted to have some sort of transition because this is what I alluded to earlier, and something that was really highlighted in this scene that wasn't used in the theatrical for a myriad of reasons was Reeve's performance as Clark Kent calling out, and really getting into a more father-son discussion about this. And then Todd, does your favorite moment have anything to do with the look?
Yes.
Okay, move on. So
If you want to say it now, it's okay. I'll just say it again.
okay, there's a part when Brando's face just looks at Lois Lane
Oh,
as
that's
he's
side
losing-
eye. It's that side eye.
It's oh man, and it's chilling to
Yeah.
see that, it especially knowing that this guy's gone, and it is really really rough. And we could just skip over to the point. There was actually just a couple of points that happens in between this moment and when he gets his powers back is it shows the three destroying Mount Rushmore, changing it. Within
Oh,
the
yeah.
Donner cut, it shows the destruction of the Washington Monument, which I like
Mhm.
more because it indicated they're going to Washington instead of just let's randomly go to South Dakota because we know where this is, right?
I like that because that's an improvement to that monument because the original monument such a disrespectful thing to the Native American people to put those ugly white men in the mountain in the middle. Yeah, horrible. I'm
But I
not
mean,
a
like-
fan of that.
I mean,
Sorry.
seriously, like
But
they can
yeah,
find out-
Zod. Show
No,
them.
no, but I mean, like, just seriously, in the sense of like,
I get it.
okay,
It
they
makes
should
more
not,
sense.
why
but,
would they know where this is exactly and why this is a big deal? So
I feel like this conversation you just had, we're going to revisit in the next Superman show for a very specific reason.
yeah, but in the White House, I couldn't remember if this was in the theatrical, but Zod grabs a gun and he's firing, and he's like gleefully firing it. I don't know if that was kept in the theatrical, but that was like
I
that
believe
seemed
it's
like
in both. It's hard because we watch them both, and there's there's
Yeah.
little differences throughout. So it's like
Right.
some of those things. It's like I'm not sure.
Um,
But
okay, so going back, sorry,
I
go
do
ahead.
remember. No, I was just gonna say I do remember that being in there though.
So then going back to when Clark goes back to the Fortress of Solitude to get his powers back. Now in the theatrical, as far as you know, he just sees the glowing crystal, and that's just what happens, right?
Yeah.
That you're just supposed to assume like, oh, he just throws it in some more water and is able to build another chamber and able to re-engineer it or whatever.
Mhm.
Whereas I like the re-engineering idea that like when he's kneeling and you're thinking like, what the hell, and it crushes it. I
They're
love
really
that.
about
I
kneeling
love
in this
ending.
movie.
Right, yeah. But in this theatrical cut, Jarrell has to use every bit of power he has left, and basically sacrificing his being able to communicate to his son, which is a much more powerful scene. And again, going back to Reeve's performance in this, just absolutely like you get to see that he really like put some work into this, and it wasn't just some superhero movie, which if you're watching the theatrical cut, that's what it comes off as. Whereas
Right.
this just like shows like there's some real depth here.
He doesn't get the credit he deserves, but it's hard
It's
when you're
rough.
acting in tights. I get it, but he like even just his transformation between Clark and Superman. I mean, like going back to the first one, like you see it without him saying a word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And here though, him really kind of speak and really kind of, I don't know, show that side that's absent from the theatrical makes a huge impact and really just makes it overall just a better movie in my opinion, because but I think the last thing we would have to go over is the ending is different. Whereas Superman in the Donner cut, he goes back in time and reverses the Zod trio from ever being released from the Phantom Zone.
Right. Well, and there's also the when there's the first fight scene between the three of them and Superman, the blowjob scene is extended. When she's like blowing all the people away, and like so.
All the
But it's like it's so much cheesier in
the theatrical.
in the theatrical version. I mean, there was granted there was I think the writers were high and they're like, we've got too many ideas of what would be great during this scene. Let's throw them all in there. We've got the guy with the umbrella. We've got the guy with the roller skates. We've got the guy on the phone. Like, let's do it all. But like the Donner cut, I think it still used some of those, but it wasn't so extended that you're like, okay, I get it. And I think it also that moment and that cut was much more to the point of what you needed.
And that exactly is the difference between Richard Donner and Richard Lester. He was more of the humorous and adding the jokes and the funny stuff, whereas Donner, like, he used it minimal. Although I was really surprised that the toilet flush segment
stayed in.
Yeah.
Was that even in the other cut? I didn't
remember
the theatrical. Well, yeah, it was in both cuts.
Okay, I couldn't remember the flush.
See,
it just stood out so much more in the Donner cut because it didn't feel like it belonged.
That's right. Yeah.
In the Niagara Falls scene, where the lady yells out, "I knew he was Jewish." Like, I didn't recognize
you guys are just throwing out all my favorite bits.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. Maybe we should get the favorite.
That was my number 2.
That's pretty funny.
But yes, that is hysterical. What a nice man. Of course he's Jewish.
The last thing Greg, I wasn't sure if you mentioned it, the omission of the 3 in the small town that they wreck. And I really like the way it's put together, where it's just Clark and Lois, and then you see that they've already destroyed a town. It goes into them meeting the sheriffs, and then the next time you see them, the town is wrecked.
Right.
And that kind of made more of an impactful feel to just think like kind of maybe let your imagination fill in the blank here. And it's almost like him saying they can really mess stuff up really quickly, right?
Right.
As opposed to them like just kind of casually walking into a bar and then challenging somebody to arm wrestle. Like it didn't. It made it made the like Zod's ruthlessness more evident, because he shouldn't just go to a town and just walk around with people not worshiping him. Like he
Right.
seems like the kind of or at least Terrence Stamp's performance is more of, I'm here, you all bow to me, right? And
I
if
think he
nobody
just
does
like
it,
yelling it.
what's
And
that?
I
Yeah,
think he
it
just
was.
like yelling.
I love
it.
when he just like Zod, like just like into the camera at one point, like just
Yeah, it's great.
yeah, insane. I'm sorry, Greg. Were you trying
And
to
I
say
do,
something?
yeah, I wonder if they were trying to establish, oh, this is them discovering how far their powers go or something. But like, I just felt it was below them, to waste their time with an arm, like you said, with like an arm wrestling match and such. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that one.
And
But I did love that stuff as a kid.
Oh yeah.
sure. That pretty much covers the majority of the differences. Todd, would you have anything? Am I missing something before?
No,
we
I
get
think
into
that's
which
pretty
one we
much it.
prefer?
There's still like probably little things we're not talking about, but no, those are the big ones. I mean, honestly, the biggest, like the one that for me makes the most impact is the Brando footage.
Yes, absolutely. So segueing into which one we prefer out of the two, I'm 100% for the Donner cut. I like that it's shorter. I like these because shorter is better, less is more, and the tone of it feels so much more like the first one and just has so much more impact, especially in the Brando scene and Reeve's performance, especially watching it posthumously is it's something real special, and it's a shame that not a lot of people saw that aspect of his performance with this character. It's a testament to how well he worked and how talented he was. And seeing that interaction with Brando is like, especially not even just the actors, but just the characters between, like Todd said, father-son moment, and is really cool to see. So I'm 100% behind the Donner cut.
Yeah,
I'm okay never watching the theatrical cut ever again.
I'm right there with you. Like I don't know. Obviously, by my commentary of the name of the director,
Yeah.
I was frustrated, especially because it's been so long since I've seen Superman 2, like it was with Superman 1. And when we revisited Superman 1, I was like, this movie holds up. Like, this is a great film. So going into Superman 2, I was equally as excited. And then to be let down, I was like, man, this was unfortunate because Zod is a great character, and so yeah, but then getting to watch that Donner cut, I was like, okay, thank you. Like I was grateful that this was done because it should be like the Superman 2 movie. And I don't feel like I don't think we should acknowledge the other one at this point in time.
Yes.
While I agree, Richard Donner cut is the better of the two and the better film. I don't think it's perfect. And I think there is a hybrid cut somewhere in between. We didn't specifically talk about the kiss versus the spin. I know some people are like, oh, well, that's dumb. I think that's a better ending because we're not repeating the same as the last film. I think the ideal cut is somewhere in between. Because honestly, you could take the Lester cut and just put that Brando footage back in, and that movie is going to be tenfold better. So to me, and I don't think that's the way to go. I think, like I said, the Donner cut is better, but it's not perfect, and it throws off canon too with that. Like it makes Superman lazy. All right, let's spin it back again. So
now you could have even Like, I think a fun way to go could have been when they do the thing that weakens Zod and everyone, that also ruins Lois's memory and makes it
Right.
so she forgets something about it. Maybe she like passes out in that moment. Granted, you lose that great
Mm.
punch and line that she gets from it, but I mean that would be a nice, it kind of
And
closes
that's a good
everything up.
fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, and obviously, Donner would have done something different if he got to actually finish Superman 2.
Right.
And it
Sure.
would have been a different ending. But since they were recreating the version he did, so for me, it's still just a curiosity piece. Like, it's the better movie, but it like canon wise, it kind of throws it off, in my opinion. So it's one of those things like it. But then some people can just say they'll just watch 1 and 2 and ignore the next 2. Which will be an exciting show when we get there, because you will be.
Oh, my fighting gloves are on.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
You can be wrong.
Can't wait.
I can already tell you right now, Greg will be siding with me. That's my gut reaction.
We'll see.
He's a fan of comedy.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm a fan of Superman being an action movie.
Well,
That's
then-
what.
Okay. Well,
All right.
You could save that for
That's right.
next. Well, yeah, next month, July.
Our final episode covering these Christopher Reeve Superman films right before the release of the new James Gunn film. Going to be a discussion between Superman 3 and 4 in the same episode. Todd's swiftly right now behind 3. I'm swiftly behind 4. And
I mean, one's a good movie, one's not.
Greg hasn't seen.
Greg will be the tiebreaker because
What?
I don't think me and Ozzy are going to be swayed in either.
Here's the thing:
way.
if I lose this fight, I lose this fight, but I'm still going to enjoy 4 more than 3. We'll get
Well,
into
no one's saying you can't enjoy one more than the other. I'm just arguing which is a better film.
Okay, all right. So moving on.
Should we rate it?
Sure.
Are we going to actually rate it? Or are
We
just
gotta
gonna
finish
Can
our
we do
favorite
favorite
moments.
moments?
That's
Oh,
what we were
dude.
about to go into.
Gee, see, I don't
now
even know where
Todd's
we're
at
going. Now.
blue
Todd, do
already.
you just want to like go first and recap what we?
Well, okay,
agreed for?
my first favorite moment would have been Brando giving Lois the side eye after his baby boy gave up his powers for the. He knew he was screwing up, but all right, I'm gonna let him learn. I'm gonna let him learn.
Amazing, like
without
fantastic.
saying a word. Yeah,
Chilling.
'Cause-
And then the other one was that Greg had mentioned. You had said, what was your number 2?
my number 2 was where's it? I read it again. Where'd it go? Oh, well, yeah. After the rescue of the little boy at Niagara Falls, you just hear a looped dialogue. Oh, what a nice man! Of course he's Jewish. Just
Right.
yeah. So funny. Made me laugh so hard.
And Greg.
So I'm gonna say one from each cut of it. Now, granted, one scene was in both of them. From the theatrical, I think my favorite moment was oddly the kid falling in Niagara Falls. Like the graphics were so bad in that, and like the fall was so bad that I was laughing way too hard for a kid falling in Niagara Falls. But my favorite part in the Donner cut was actually the line from when Lois decides to try to figure out, oh, is this really Superman? And she jumps out of the building. And then when they go to Clark and they're like, hey, have you seen Lois? And then he has that quick line of, she just stepped out for a moment. And I was like, yeah, that is what I wanted from you. That is perfect.
Yeah. I really enjoyed when you had the underground fight in the city, and it's both Superman and one of the 3 underground, and everything's just shake like as though there's an earthquake happening underneath. Just like the kind of, it lets your imagination go like, man, what does it look like down there right now? How bad are they messing? And you see the manholes flying up, and to see the enemy come up at a diagonal through a building, and then Superman comes out and he's doing this with his fist was just so cool to see. And there was actually one shot in specific in the Donner cut that wasn't in the theatrical, is that after Superman gets crushed by the bus and they're all wreaking havoc, right before he gets up, you see metal being pushed down to reveal the S, which I thought was really cool.
Yes.
Kind of like a superhero, like kind of like the hope, like, yeah, now he's gonna come back, even though he just leaves right after that. To going into the ratings, for me, the theatrical by itself, because of its goofiness and tone, and like I really hate the idea of Clark tripping on a rug and falling into a fire pit, and that's how, like, Lois is like, oh my gosh, you really are Superman, after, like, literally just after she was in the river, like,
And on that, the whole thing about Clark Kent is that is an intentional goofiness. So like his and clumsiness. So for him to do that would have to be intentional, which he wouldn't really be wanting to reveal himself because
his heart wanted to do it, Greg.
that's
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah.
Dumb.
You're gonna make me
Exactly.
censor myself again.
But I mean, the idea of, again, using a blank to figure that out, brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that very lucky we even were able to have that scene because it was shot for the test screening, and you could really see how slim Christopher Reeve was versus when he actually, bulked up for when he actually got the part. But it's still very cool that it's included and that it fills in that gap.
Absolutely. So, but going back to the ratings for the theatrical, it's probably at a 3.5 for me. Actually, I will say it's a 3.5 for me. The tone was just kind of off, and I didn't like the humor was. I mean, you could probably have humor in a Superman movie, which we're probably going to see. It just wasn't. Like, now revisiting it, it just wasn't working with me. And with this one now, just because it reminded me so much of the first, and Zod seemed so much more, just had this feeling of being more ruthless and more sadistic, more like that true villain, kind of showed through here. The Brando footage, the performance from Reeve in that Brando footage, just puts it over the top for me at a 5. It's not a perfect movie, like, what you're saying, Todd. There's some things, but those parts in it, I mean,
But
if
it got a
somebody was
perfect
really,
score.
I mean, okay, fine. You want to make me say 4.5? I'll say
No, I'm
4.5.
not. You could say what? No,
5
it's
for
your
perfect.
No, I'm not. It doesn't have to be perfect to be a 5 in your heart. That's fine. I was just busting your balls.
I understand. I just watched the League, an episode of the League last night, and that came up. One of the daughters tells the parents to stop busting her balls, and it's really funny that it came up right now. But it is a 5 for me in my heart for Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut.
Right. I think you gave the theatrical a higher score than it deserves just for the fact that it's Superman. Because maybe I'm wrong, but
it still had Zod. It still had all these people that made the. I mean,
I'll give it this. For me, it kind of depends what mood I'm in. If I'm in the mood for a lighter, I can watch the theatrical cut. Now, if I like, if not, and you want the straight series, you can go with the other, because I like both cuts, like I said. So I guess, like, if you feel like you're more serious mood, you go with Donner. If you're a little lighter, want a little bit more humor, you can go the other way. So it works. I mean, that's my opinion.
I could put the theatrical in the background and I'd be happy. But like, if I was sitting watching it, like as I did, I got a little bored.
Okay, that's I totally agree with you. So, what's your rating on it?
2 for the theatrical. No, I'll give it 2.5 because like there were some good moments, and good points to it, but I got bored. I thought certain things were extended more than they should have been. Overall, I don't like what it made Lois look more crazy than thoughtful.
It was predicting the future.
Yeah, that's fair. But when it comes to the Donner cut, I'm definitely giving it a 4.5. I really enjoyed the movie. I was going to give it a 5, but unfortunately, Todd's commentary about like the using the same trope a second time, like it kind of affected me through this. I was like, yeah, that was kind of dumb. So yeah. So I'm gonna stick with the 4 and a 5, 4.5.
I will just remind people though what Todd was saying when he brought that up is that now this was after the footage was made, so Donner would have had a different ending.
Yeah. So I get it's fair, but
I get why in that, but yeah, I'm still got a grade on what we got.
Like, why couldn't you go with the original ending in that case then?
Because he wouldn't use the Lester footage. I think that was the whole thing.
So it is actually very similar to the Justice League that happened, where Zack Snyder didn't want to use any of Joss Whedon's footage that he shot.
Right, but there is 100% Lester shot footage in the Donner cut. Because there was some things that he never got to film, so he had to
I got it. Okay.
Because it was only, I think, 60.
So like, why draw the line then? Just because it's the ending?
Yeah, I think because that he came up with, and that's like the other stuff that was shot was stuff that was already planned. Like it wasn't the stuff that they were using to replace his footage, and using that would have been what replaced his footage. Well, that he never shot anything. So
I will say,
why did they replace him? By the way.
Because he cared too much.
Well, I thought it was because after the success of the first one, the Salkinds wanted to make it more like family friendly, so they could have like a huge franchise. Because at the end, well, I don't.
They can say that they were headbutting with Donner throughout the entire production, but he wanted to make a good movie first, and they were more bottom line.
The director wants to make a good movie.
Well, now not many, but like they were just conflict about the things that we're doing and what they wanted to get done, and they felt he was spending too much money for stuff they didn't feel as important. So that's why they brought in their buddy who shot the Three Musketeers movies. So, but yeah, there was a lot going in. There's multiple documentaries on it. There's actually some good featurettes on the Blu-ray for this.
Gotcha. Done. I think we just need your rating.
I am on the theatrical version. I am a 3. It would have been higher previously in my youth, but after the Donner cut, it has definitely come down some because the Donner cut, as I said, superior while not perfect, which is why I'm giving it a 4.5. Now, I do think a hybrid cut. I know there's fan edits out there that use, like, and if I'd seen it, that'd probably be the one I'd like the most. That use the original opening and use the original ending on the Donner cut. And I think it also has some stuff in the middle, like the town attack. But it kind of like I think just that ending alone, I think would make the Donner cut even better. But I get why he wouldn't use it.
That ending of the kiss is one of the dumbest things ever, because you've already established all these powers he could do. When does mind control come into a thing? When does he have his own Men in Black Flash thing that he can activate through his lips? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, he does because he did it. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
When I was a kid, and that happened, it's like, how does Superman do that? Like, it didn't.
It does make sense because he has the freezy breath, and so he's just doing a targeted brain freeze.
There you go. Jesus Christ. I know. I agree. I get the point, but I like it better than doing the same thing as the first movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
then we could then both agree that anything would be better than the two endings that we were given.
I don't know about anything, but out of the options we have, I would much rather have the ending. I didn't see the movie previously.
My ending, the one that's what should happen.
There you go.
Okay, now there you go.
Bring back Christopher Reeve.
Okay.
Well, they did in The Flash, if you knew. Yeah.
Fair.
I was so excited, and then they pan over, and I got to see stupid ass Helen Slater's Supergirl. That movie, like literally, the last time I watched that movie, I realized it literally made me stop being a physical collector so much, because I'm like, I'm never gonna watch this movie again. I've bought it on every format. Why did I need to buy this Blu-ray again? And I'm like, I'm never gonna watch this again in my entire life. So now I've become very picky on what I buy. Am I gonna watch this more than once in the rest of my life? If the answer is no, I probably won't buy it.
That's pretty funny. All right.
Damn
well,
you, Supergirl. So it made me very upset in the Flash. Like she did one movie. Just give me Christopher Reeves. Hell, I'll let you stick John Cryer next to him, but don't stick damn Helen Slater. I like Helen Slater. I just hated Supergirl.
I got you.
Spoiler
right.
if we cover it ever.
I think it's fair to say that this concludes our episode of Superman 2. Do you guys have anything else before you'd like to share before we head out for the evening?
I can't wait for 3 and 4.
That is going to be coming up in a few weeks. We'll be back next week at the brand new episode of Flesh Wound Farce. But before we head out, just another reminder in case you're in the Orange County area, I will be hosting trivia this Tuesday at the Rush Barn Grill in Lake Forest beginning at 7 o'clock, and this Wednesday at the Brewery in Placentia beginning at 7 o'clock. Both are free to play and prizes for the top winning teams, which, by the way, I just have to say there's some vegan options that'll be available for the next couple of months over at the Brewery at Placentia, and I had a sample plate of some orange chicken that obviously not real chicken,
Cauliflower,
plant protein. It was the plant protein, but just prepared like orange chicken, and that was the best orange chicken I've ever had. I'm not even kidding. And here's what was even funnier is that there was Mongolian pork, and one of the answers towards the end of the night was Mongolia. And so when I asked the question, because it was one of these, what 3 countries border the China and the USSR, or Russia, rather, sorry, because North Korea, and then the other 2 answers were Mongolia and Kazakhstan.
Did you play a song from Bill and Ted's?
No, I actually
for the Mongolian.
Oh,
South Park?
no. No, I actually played Air Force One by Nelly.
Why?
Because of 1997 Air Force One, where the terrorists were from Kazakhstan.
That's
Come on, that no.
I just remember the one you did. No, that was 100% Aussie. I just remember that one recently where it wasn't Aussie enough, and me and Greg were both confused.
Okay, all right, good. No, so
that was definitely full Aussie. Yeah,
excellent, fantastic. So right before, that's a hint, ladies and gentlemen, as to what you get with the songs as the hints. Now, and then right after I asked the question, I did say there is an environmental hint around that I can't really say, but I'll reveal at the end here. But yeah, it was Air Force Ones by Nelly because of the Air Force One movie and terrorists from Kazakhstan. There you go. And there was a few elements and atomic numbers and symbols there. It was pretty messed up. But it was enjoyed, and you should enjoy it too if you are in the Orange County area. Now for world-famous juggler Greg Larson and Flesh Wound producer Todd, I'm Ozzy V, and we'll see you next week right here in a brand new episode of Flesh Wound Farce.